Hi, I'm Carla. I'm a food addict, compulsive eater, and bulimic. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the gray sheet. I write them down, I call them in, I eat them, and nothing else in between. Just for today, abstinence is the most important thing in my life without exception. And my abstinence date is March 31st, 2007. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much, Theta, for asking. I really needed to do this today. So I hope that something that comes from my mouth is valuable to others. And here we go. So I come from big numbers. That's my story. I mean, I thus far am an overeater. Doesn't mean that I couldn't go to the other side of things, but just for now, that's what I know of myself. I do have a picture I'll share real quick. I had to be desperate and 325 pounds before, oh, sorry, it's going to be kind of glary, before I was willing to do what we do and come into these rooms. You know, early out of the chute, food just seemed like the answer. It was, I was born 14 years after my nearest sibling. My parents were just kind of over it. They weren't expecting that. And so my needs were met. There was always food. And in fact, that was the time when I really knew that I was going to get attention. You know, we had meals together always. And so food really was how I saw love. And then, you know, when things happened that I was too young to have any way to deal with, food was there for me as well in those times. It was a friend. It masked pain. It was enjoyable. And there was a part of me that got something out of the sneaky part of it, because in between meals, I didn't have a free range of the kitchen. And so I'd have to sneak in there and get things. And I already knew at that time that my mom was a sneak eater. She hid things in different locations, and she seemed to I always knew she had stuff hidden. And so anyhow, that became kind of a bit of a game. So I started gaining weight, at puberty. And my mom and dad, mom mostly, put me on various diets. And I really didn't have any success. And I would just go to friends' houses and eat, or I would trade, this healthy lunch that my mom had made me for something delicious that someone else had. These things seemed surmountable to me. And I really was, especially as a kid, it was really the white stuff. It was really the sugar, that hardcore that grabbed me. And so I did start in junior high and high school. I was significantly overweight. I graduated from high school. I weighed around 220 pounds. I'm only 5 foot. Well, I think I'm really only 5'1" now, but at one point I was up to 5'2". And so excess weight didn't do well on a little framed body. Of course, I always thought I was big boned, not sure why. So I also have other addictions that are also I'm in recovery for. But food was always the primary addiction. I started dieting when I was out of school. My parents, were very much invested in me being thin, and not only because of the look good factor of that, but because they wanted me to have a good life. Their hearts were in the right places. And so they paid for me to do, Jenny Craig Nutrisystems several times. I would lose the same 60 or 80 pounds. And then, the compulsion, which was never at bay, just became much more active when I had to start looking at life situations. I'd lose 60 or 80 pounds and I would start getting attention from people. And I had no idea how to deal with any of that. And so it just was this vicious cycle. And then I'd put the stuff in my body And it had set up the craving for more. And meanwhile, I was making a mess of any of the relationships I was in. I was a terrible employee. I really seemed to, this was not a planned event, but when I look back, I really just did enough to get by. That was my thing. At work, it was just, do enough. I never really was, I never felt like I was doing the actual job I was hired for. I was just there trying to do what I needed to do to get out of there and get home and have my food. And that was a cycle for me. When I was introduced to Overeaters Anonymous, that was my first 12-step program. My former partner, we had dieted together. We got together after I had lived alone for about 9 years, and my disease had really progressed, and I did all kinds of crazy things to get the food, and would order great quantities of food and get a couple of extra beverages, have it delivered, and talk in wheeze about oh, thank you so much, we're really going to enjoy this, and just lie and go to a checker at the beginning of the day and at the to buy healthy food, and towards the end of the day want something else, so I'd make sure I went to a different checker as though they were really watching me. And it was just a mess. My brain was just felt like I was running as fast as I can, and I could never keep up with my brain because it was a shit show, really, up there, quite frankly. So got together with my partner, we dieted together, and I was never successful. I could do it for a little bit and then I'd go right back into it. And I really saw how my disease had ramped up because I couldn't sneak it as, and we moved in together and I couldn't sneak food as easily as I had. And I couldn't wait for her to leave. And that was a really weird mind trip. I thought, oh my goodness, do I not really care about her? What's the deal? Why do I want her out of here so much? And finally I realized, it was because she was in the way of my first love, which is food. And so finally, she did a little mini intervention with me. She had a professional relationship with the 12 steps. And she said, it was so beautiful. I mean, truly, I look back and I think that's why we were together. I don't think that's probably her story, but I don't know. But she was so loving and kind. She said, I think you're a really powerful woman. I think if you could do this alone, it would have already happened. I think you're an addict. I think you need help. And why don't you go to an Overeaters Anonymous meeting? And so it was a miracle. They happened to have meetings at a place, a church that I was familiar with, which made a big deal to me because was a big deal for me because my social anxiety was ridiculous. And just going out and being where other people were, having to negotiate whether or not I was going to be able to fit in a chair, just what it was like to have to squeeze my body into different places and have other people see me, not to mention just trying to clothe myself in a way that I felt attractive. But I knew this place, so I got myself there, and I have so much to be grateful for Overeaters Anonymous. I did spend my first couple of years in Gray Sheet. I can twist that and badmouth OA because they didn't do this for me, or they did this for me, but the reality is I would not have found you all if it hadn't been for Overeaters Anonymous. And the other piece too is that they let me know I wasn't crazy. I mean, I really thought that there was something so deplorable about me, or I felt so othered. But in the first meeting, people were talking about what they did with the food and getting food out of garbage cans, and how badly they wanted to lose weight and to handle life in an upstanding way, and how time and time again they just couldn't do it. And I just felt that belonging right away. And they have that closing prayer where they say, I'm forgetting it right now. We hope you come to love us the way we already love you. And I can't, it's hard for me to even say that out loud because I felt it, and feelings were not getting into my body in those days, but I really did feel that. And that just was the welcome that helped me go back.
10 minutes, Carla.
Thank you so much. So one of the other things that I really got there was that I could really have a higher power, that I wasn't, that this God, or whatever I was going to choose to call it, really was available to me. And, they had fun. This is where I know this from. I don't know that it's the origin, but they did fun little things, like said, write a want ad for your higher power. This is what we're looking for. This is how much we pay. No, but this is what, I'm looking for. And just different things that made it really tangible. And so that was that. What didn't work for me is I was really at the point where I needed to have someone to say, here's what you eat, here's what you don't eat, here are the things you need to do. Because I had a hard time finding anybody that would talk to me at all about the food. Someone told me most people give up the white stuff, which I kind of got a little bit, but not totally. And then, what I did do was three sensible meals with nothing in between. But sensible is really relative. And, it started out being reasonable, the fists or the palm sized thing and the this and the that. But I was just putting a higher quality sugar into my body. I was doing health food store type sugars and carbs, and found out that, that's doing the same thing for me. It's spiking my blood sugar. It's making me want more. It's having me crave. And then it was just like 3 smorgasbords a day with nothing in between. It was, it was crazy. And I started lying to my sponsor and just needed to go out and do more research. And so I found Grey Sheet. I knew I couldn't go back out there to, Weight Watchers or any of the other. I felt like that my answer had to be somewhere in the 12 steps if there was an answer. And I had only heard things about Grey Sheet that were unattractive and not complimentary. And so I hadn't looked for that option until I was just really hit rock bottom. I'd hung out around 250, 275, but I was fired from a job, and a series of really difficult life changes there had me gain 50 pounds in a really short period of time. And I was really down and out. The physical problems started really showing up. I had severe sleep apnea and all kinds of health issues, plantar fasciitis, and a numbness in my hands and my feet, and not to mention things like heartburn and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and just not being able to be particularly mobile. So I crawled in, really feels like I crawled in. I think I was upright, to one of OA's annual events, because that's just what I knew. That's what I did. And I saw these 2 women across the room, and they freaking had the glow. They so had the glow. And it just did not matter what they told me to do. It just did not matter. I just felt like, oh my God, these are angels on high. And I was willing to do whatever they said to do. It just didn't matter. And then I got, a couple days in, I found out there were these phone bridge meetings. And then I got to meet all of you all, and people from all over the United States and even internationally. And that gave me something to do while I was doing all this chopping, and that all, seemed so huge at the beginning, and getting just the mechanics down of what we do. And then shortly thereafter, I found out that, people get together at retreats. And so I made plans to go to at the time there was a retreat in Malibu, California. And I got to go there. And for my first year, I got to take my chip there live. And that was just,
1 minute left, Carla.
oh, how does that happen? So I guess what really came up for me before the meeting was, what I hope I can offer is hope. I was down and out. I would not be alive if it weren't for Grey Sheet. I was headed down an awful path. And life has had plenty of ups and downs and in-betweens, and since I became Grey Sheet abstinent. And I am able to meet each of the challenges with my best self. And I don't have to do it alone. I get to do it with all you all. I have some amazing relationships in Grey Sheet. I give back to Grey Sheet. When I'm in a stressful time, I look at where can I beef up my program? Sorry, said a food. How can I be more involved? Because this is, I get what I need from all you all, because one of the ways that my higher power speaks to me is through people with skin. So make calls, do the deal, let yourself, learn the mechanics of the program, of the
That's
food,
time, Carla.
and make your food delicious, no matter what.